Hey there. Have you been hearing about all this timeline jumping that a lot of us spiritual people are talking about and wondering, how would I even know if I jump timelines? Well, if that's a question you've been holding, I've got an answer for you, as well as some things you can do to ensure that you're jumping timelines to higher vibrations as quickly as possible. Hey, I'm Patty Lennon. I am an intuitive that works with people privately to grow their intuitive gifts. And as a result of that work, I have had a front row seat into some major timeline jumping of people, and I have a few stories I can share with you. But first, I'm going to give you the three signs. The three signs are: one, objects are appearing different than they ever did before, especially better than they did before. Sign number two is that you are no longer triggered by things that used to trigger you. And sign number three is you hold memories that no one else around you seems to hold, especially memories that were difficult memories. All right, now let's get into storytelling, because that sounds all well and good, but what does that really mean? Objects not appear the way that they used to? This is my favorite story about timeline jumps. And by the way, the stories I'm sharing with you, I have already gotten approval from my clients to share. So they have given me full go ahead to give you all the details. The first story, with objects appearing different than they did in another timeline, comes from a client who has been doing deep work on herself to grow her intuitive gifts. And she shot me an email the other day that said, "Hey, Patty, have you ever seen a situation where the angels or spirit guides have put something in your path that's a little bit bigger than a dime or a feather as a sign that you're doing your work?" And then she went on to tell me why she was asking. Now, my response to her was that I have definitely seen lots of big, beautiful manifestations put in people's paths as signs. But based on the story she told me, I knew that what had really happened was she had jumped to a new timeline. So here's the story. She was married and divorced 25 years ago. In the process of leaving the home she had shared with her ex-husband, a beautiful Yadro statue that she adored had broken. The arms had broken off of it. She loved the statue so much that she decided to glue the arms back onto the Yadro statue. She's a very detail-oriented person, so I'm sure the statue looked quite lovely. And she had had that statue on her dresser for the last 25 years. She is in the process of moving homes and has been clearing out her basement. In the process of clearing out her basement, she found the box that the statue had come in. And she thought, this is wonderful. I'll be able to put it in its box, and then I will transport it and it will be safe. And isn't that going to be such a wonderful thing? But to her surprise, when she opened the box, there was a brand new, completely whole statue. The exact same statue was there. And she thought, how did I have this for 25 years? I have no memory of getting this. And I knew as soon as I read the story what had happened. She had jumped to a new timeline where a broken statue was not good enough for her. She demanded wholeness. She demanded beauty for herself. And she had gotten that statue for herself. Now, she had no memory of this, but she had the new statue. So that is a perfect example of how objects around us will appear, disappear, improve based on timeline jumping. So that's story number one. Story number two has to do with triggers. I was on the phone with one of my clients. I had mentioned how she was doing with a particular individual that had been challenging for her. And she looked at me. We were on Zoom. She looked at me like very confused and didn't understand what I was saying. And I said my question again. And she said, "Who are you talking about?" She had no recollection of the person I was talking about, had no recollection of their name, any of the details. So I also have a master's in psychology. Besides doing the metaphysical stuff, I always like to check, make sure no one's having a complete psychic break in the process, because for the time we're in, we do want to care for our mental health and be aware of it. So I gave her the details of the story that she had told me over and over and over again in varying forms. And she said, "Oh gosh, yes, I hear you. I vaguely remember being upset by that, but I can't even for now figure out why I would have been upset about that. It's completely gone." And as we uh, got into it more, what she could express was that it was almost the shadow of a memory. The more details I gave her, the clearer it became, but she still couldn't touch it. And she definitely could not feel the trigger of this individual in her life. Now, she was someone who had been doing deep work in letting go of judgments of others. And I'm going to give you one more story. And then after that story, I'm going to talk to you about 3 separate things you can be doing right now to ensure that you are moving yourself to the highest timeline based on these examples that I'm giving you. But let me give you that other story first. So the third story is actually mine, and it has to do with memories changing. In my case, there was a story inside my family of a very difficult situation that we had all handled pretty poorly. And it happened years and years and years ago, but it was something that still stuck to me. I didn't like the way I showed up. I could have, a few years ago, I would have justified the way I showed up because some other people behaved, in my opinion, even worse. But we had all really deteriorated in that particular situation, and we had all since apologized, but it had always stuck with me. Somehow, in the course of a conversation, I made reference to this situation, not in a negative way at all, almost saying, like, look how far we've come. And no one else in the conversation remembered the story. I gave them additional details. They all looked at me blank. Not a single one of them had any recollection that this situation had happened. Now, if I was only talking to one person, I could brush it off at like maybe a memory, maybe something had stuck with me more than another. But this thing had been big and no one could remember this. And they all looked at me like I was crazy. And that's when it hit me. The timeline I'm in now didn't include that kind of difficulty, that kind of frisson in our relationship. We all had higher level skills. We all brought more love to the table, I guess. And so in the timeline I'm in, that doesn't exist for them. Now you'll notice with these stories, there are thumbprints or vague shadows of the old timeline. In the case of my first client that I told you about with the statue, and in my case, we still remember something from the old timeline. In the case of my other client who had let go of the trigger, I still held the memory of that timeline for her, but for her, it was really gone. So when you've jumped timelines, it doesn't mean you won't remember things from the old timeline. But what I have seen is they'll start to fade and fade and fade. Now, the client who just found the second statue, that just happened a couple of days ago. In fact, that was what prompted me to do this video because it was such a cool story. So we'll see in a couple of weeks, maybe a year, what happens. Does the broken statue just disappear from all our memories? I don't know. I'll have this video out there maybe in the new time, another timeline. It won't even exist, but we'll see. But what I can tell you is just because you may remember things from another timeline doesn't mean you haven't jumped. And again, there are lots of signs that you've jumped timeline. You're operating in a more loving place. You're attracting more beautiful things into your life. There's just tons of signs that you've jumped timelines. But because a lot of them also look like healing, we can misunderstand that that's what actually happened. In this case, I think objects appearing, disappearing, and being made whole is a really cool one because that's kind of something you can pay attention to. Triggers completely disappearing or memories of people disappearing is another one. And then certainly difficult situations that you feel responsible for no longer existing in the memories of the people you love. So again, those are just very cool signs. I promise you it's coming for you if it hasn't already come for you, because we are all in a time where we are being carried up to higher timelines together. No one's being left behind. I want to stress that. You'll see me stress that over and over again in a lot of my videos because I know that that's a fear for a lot of people. But if you want to know what can you be doing to jump timelines faster, I'm going to pull from the 3 stories I just told you. In the case of my client with the statue, she has been doing deep, deep work to trust that what comes in her path is her path. And when things don't work out the way that they're supposed to, not judging them as wishing she had made a different choice, regretting a choice she made in the past, or thinking somehow she made a misstep. That's been deep work for her. So, option number 1 for you to help yourself jump timelines is whatever is showing up is your path. Let go of questioning whether you made the right choice, whether you have made a mistake, whether you should have done something differently. Let go of regretting something that happened back there. Trust that if it happened, it happened. And it was for your best. It was your best that you could do at the time. When it comes to my story and having that memory disappear in the minds of the people I love, the big work I've been doing is sending love and compassion back to my younger selves. I have spent time, a lot of time, looking back. I mean, I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot. I'm 53 years old. I've had a lot of learning to do. And when I look at the time of my 30s, where I had moved into a more spiritual path, but didn't quite have all the tools that I have today, I would judge myself. Like, I wish I had known. I wish I had done different. And what I've started doing is really honoring that version of me was doing the very best she can. There's a story I've told here many times about us having a really significant amount of debt when we hit some really hard life situations. And in the past, the way I've always held it was just being glad that I healed through that time. But lately, what I've been doing is really honoring how strong that version of me was when she was going through some really difficult challenges, and just really looking at her with pride and with hope and with love and with honoring. So doing that for yourself. And then finally, the client who had the trigger go away, she's been doing a lot of work on letting go of judgments. We are certainly in a time where it's very easy to say, look what that group of people's doing. Look at what they're doing. If so-and-so would stop doing that, our world would be better. If so-and-so would stop doing that, my home would be better, whatever it is. She's been doing a lot of work on that, because accepting and receiving people as they are doesn't mean you have to hold on to them, doesn't mean you have to keep them in your life, but just really accepting that that's what they're doing. And for whatever reason, that's the right path for them, and focusing on what you want and what you're doing in your life. That's what that client has been focused on. And she has the proof, right? I mean, look, even if you didn't jump timelines and something that was heavily triggering a person was bothering you, just completely became a non-issue for you, that alone would be worth it, right? So, hey, I'm recording this video in September of 2025, but this applies to really any time that we're in. That being said, if you are watching it in September, go back and watch my September predictions, because we are in a big shift where there's going to be a lot of timeline jumping in between these eclipses that we're having here. We already had our lunar eclipse. The solar eclipse is almost upon us. And the entire month of September is holding major energy for timeline jumps. So focus on yourself. Focus on honoring yourself, loving yourself, appreciating yourself, accepting that what shows up on your path is perfect, even if it doesn't feel good, and accepting that however somebody else is showing up is what is good for them, and turn the attention back on yourself. And I promise if you can do that, and that's a big ask. I know that that's a big ask, but if you can do that, that'll really shift things inside of you. Now, I do have some resources that can help you. I won't go into all of them, But if you've got something going on, you'd like a resource, maybe you need help seeing signs, maybe you need help calling in help from the divine, maybe you need help tapping into your spirit guides. I have free resources for all of that. Put a comment below and subscribe to my channel, please, for a couple reasons. One, I'm on my way to getting enough numbers so that I can put out more content here without commercials. And two, I am going to be going live and doing live pop-up content that will really help you during this time we're in. And the only way you'll be notified is if you are subscribed. So have a beautiful day. Go out there, jump some timelines. Go love the heck out of yourself because you deserve it. Patty Lennon, I'm so happy to have spent this time with you.